In Batman's early years, he went up against Croc the Riddler and Catwoman, trying to gain an ancient artifact known as the Eye of God. This story is called Batman Killing Time, and today I'm going to bring you the full story of it. Here at Comicstorian, we break down your favorite comic books into digestible bites. I read them to you as an audio drama, and this allows you to know what you should be adding into your collection. Today we're looking at Batman Killing Time, an out-of-continuity graphic novel, and it's one of my favorites. I hope you guys enjoy. Rain falls from a darkened Gotham sky as the killer Croc moves throughout the crowd. He's disguised in a really big trench coat and hat. He walks into the bank, with the security guard opening the door for him. "Really coming down now, isn't it?" the guard says with a smile, his eyes not leaving the massive monster. It was 3 days ago that Julian Thawne found himself at the Iceberg Lounge. He had paid for a private session with their new dancer, Nippy, unaware of the cameras in the lounge's private rooms. He had no choice but to make a deal with Oswald Cobblepot. It was Thawne's idea for Croc to hit him, just hard enough to make it look real. Croc finally reaches the teller of the bank after waiting patiently in line. "Your money, all of it," he growls, and the teller looks confused until Croc rips him out of his booth, lifting him into the air. "All of it!" he growls again as the alarms begin to sound. Across town, Selina Kyle is in a disguise, giving tennis lessons to the wife of Ronald Barrington, one of the owners of the bank, and several others in Gotham. At this exact time, over at the GCPD, the newly appointed police commissioner James Gordon is alerted to the costumed villain heist. He rubs his eyes in frustration. "I haven't been out today. Haven't been home since yesterday. Sounds like it's storming outside. How dark is it?" he asks the sergeant. Moments later, the bat signal is activated and the dark night descends from the sky. Over at Ronald Barrington's home, Selina has finished her lesson and is enjoying tea with Mrs. Barrington, commenting on the large security guards that watch over them. After a moment, she notices the time and excuses herself to the bathroom. In Ronald Barrington's office, the banker's secretary informs him that a man from the central bank is there to brief them on the heist that is ongoing. The door opens. It reveals a green-suited Edward Nygma. "Mr. Barrington, you're about to get a call from your wife, and I highly encourage you to answer it," Edward tells him. Back over at the bank, Thawne draws his pistol on Croc, wanting to make it look good as he shouts for the villain to give it up. Croc smiles, whirling on him, hitting him much harder than was planned, killing him as Thawne's body slams into the wall. Croc continues to scream for the money, but Batman has arrived. Mr. Barrington's wife shouts for his help from the phone, telling him that Catwoman has already defeated their guards and is holding her captive. And Edward Nygma smiles, taking the phone from a stunned Ronald Barrington, hanging it up. "You should move swiftly. You just have to control the animals," Edward says with a smile. Ronald leads him down to the lower vault of his office, where he brings Edward to Vault 5. "No matter what threats you make on my family, I certainly cannot open this. And if you think you can just break the lock, well, I don't know what you're doing, and I doubt you do too," Ronald tells him. Edward nods as he looks at the massive vault door, leaning in, looking at the lock. "Yes, it's quite the riddle, isn't it?" Days earlier, we look back as to why Croc is even involved. You see, he took the job to rob the bank, thus creating a distraction for the true heist. He did this out of a necessity. He was hoping to use the money to get surgery to look normal, so that his girlfriend will love him again. But right now, Batman punches Croc hard, knocking him down. Meanwhile, over in the vault, Edward smiles as he easily gets through the door, standing in the vault, looking at the various safety deposit boxes. He ponders for a moment before easily picking out the one that he needs. "Barrington, look what we did. No one, absolutely no one, thought it could be done, and we solved it." Back up top, Croc roars as he punches Batman in the stomach and across the face, but Batman moves with the hits, ducking under another blow and punching Croc hard enough to knock loose some of his teeth. Across town, Nygma exits Barrington's office building and finds Selina waiting for him outside in the car. He gets out of the rain. "How'd it go?" she asks as he holds out the small box for her, opening it. "Selina, my dear, we did it," he says with a smile, her eyes widening as she sees the hall. Holy crap! Later, at Croc's girlfriend Vera's apartment, there's a knock at the door and she opens it to find a well-dressed man holding a bag. You're not going to spend it. You're going to hide it. When he's released from Arkham, you're going to give it to him. The help simply says. He hands her the bag and leaves. It doesn't take long for Vera to open it up and look at the large pile of money. Oh, Crocky, you shouldn't have, she says with a smile. That night, Edward and Catwoman meet their benefactor, Oswald Cobblepot, in Gotham City's Central Park, but Edward isn't happy, pointing out that Oswald has brought a weapon. It's just a normal umbrella. It was raining, Oswald tells him as he holds up the item. Of course, and if that's the case, before we do our exchange, may I hold on to it? Edward asks. Oswald relents, handing Edward the umbrella. The Riddler turns it on him, hitting Oswald again and again and again until the blood begins to splash everywhere from the beating. Catwoman looks up in fear as she sees the bat signal in the sky. There's the signal! Come on, we gotta go, Nigma! She orders as she rushes off into the night. And Edward nods, turning away from the penguin's body. Give a man a fish, and he eats for a day. Give a man a poisoned fish, and he eats for a lifetime, Edward says as he walks off into the night. Meanwhile, on top of the GCPD, Gordon informs Batman that Croc's caper was a distraction for the real heist. Jim, the vault they accessed, was it Vault 5? Batman asks, and Jim confirms this. Batman disappears into the night before he can ask more questions. Time passes. Selina and Edward now find themselves in a cabin at Lake Giordano, 40 miles outside of Gotham. Edward steps outside and hands Selina a drink that he made. She's anxious about what they did. Do you know how mad he's gonna be? Not just that we took what we took, which would be enough, but when he sees how we played him, Selina asks Edward, who's telling her a riddle? What does it take to get the bat to kill you? At least I solved that riddle, Selina says as she drinks, looking at the mountains in the distance. Over at Arkham Asylum, Batman throws Croc against the wall. Who else knew? I need a list. Everyone that you've talked to. Everywhere that you've gone in the past 30 days. Back over in Arkham, Batman steps out of the Croc cell to find a waiting Gordon. Croc gives up an address, which Gordon tells him they will run down. When Gordon turns back, Batman has disappeared. Oh, come on! It's a hallway! What are you, hiding behind the trash can? Gordon whispers in frustration. At the cabin, Selina is more anxious. Their buyer hasn't called or arrived with their money. Edward comes in from the lake, proud of himself for catching a fish, and Selina lashes out, kicking him, pinning him to the wall with her foot. What is it, Nigma? Is there a phone call? Is there even a buyer? Or are we just waiting for Batman to solve one of your puzzles? If you left him some gumdrop trail to follow, I'll break your neck before he breaks mine. She growls at Edward, but Edward holds up his hands. I'm not a fool, woman. It was clean. There are no riddles, he tells her. At the cabin, Selina keeps opening and closing the box. The phone rings and Edward answers, and moments later he looks at her. They're on their way. They have the money. In little over an hour, you'll never have to rob a jewelry store again, Selina. Back over at Vera's apartment, she doesn't seem upset with Batman, merely pointing out that Batman has no proof that she did anything wrong. That if she goes to court, they couldn't do anything to her. Batman stares at her from the shadows. Oh, I suppose we could avoid all of that, and I could just tell you where the cash is from, which is all you really want, and I suppose that you could leave with what I earned, with what I did not steal, which is all I really want. Doesn't that sound nice and easy? She asks as she sips her drink. Batman just stares at her. Days ago, Edward and Selina were waiting outside of their benefactor's door. Selina reached out with her finger, preparing to push the doorbell, as Edward looked at his watch, telling her to wait for exactly noon. Now, he says, and she pushes the doorbell. Present day, Edward and Selina wait for the exchange. They are both dressed in their costumes, with Riddler doing a crossword puzzle and Selina tossing a bottle into the air that she breaks with her whip. Relax, we're almost there, he tells her as he solves another riddle. Back over in Gotham, Batman has arrived at the Iceberg Lounge and he begins to beat the bartender to get information. He hasn't even asked a question yet. I'm aware of the loyalty that the bird demands, of the pain that he gives out at any hint of betrayal, Batman says as he throws the bartender against the wall. So I'd thought that I'd give you a sample, and then a choice, his pain or mine. Batman growls as he stalks forward. At the cabin, the doorbell finally rings, and Edward stands with a smile. There you go, the buyer, he says as he crosses the room. Catwoman doesn't get up as the Riddler reaches for the doorknob. Edward opens the door, but he finds a well-dressed older man waiting for him. His eyes widen in surprise. And you are? The Riddler demands, but the man gives him a short bow, holding up a cane. I'm the Help, he says simply, before firing the gun into the Riddler's stomach. Edward stumbles back, falling to the ground as the blood begins to pour out of his wound. Is the girl here as well? The Help asks as he steps inside. Batman rushes towards the cabin as the gunshot echoes throughout the night. He throws up his batarangs, but the Help merely moves his head, letting them fly past. He glances over his shoulder. I see. Well then, shall we? But it was earlier that the Penguin came out of his coma. One of his goons sits with him. Oswald Cobblepot motioned for a pen and paper and scrawls a simple instruction. Call for help. Kill them all. Back at our current time, though, the Help hits the ground but flips over, rolling on top of Batman, slamming his cane into his throat. Batman manages to get up and the two take it outside, fighting where they have more room. I see you've gotten overseas for at least a little of your training. How marvelous. That's a ducat. The Help says as he blocks Batman's kick, but Batman counters, throwing a backhand in, which the Help recognizes as being from Ted Grant. The Help dodges and blocks several moves, recognizing their trainers in an instant before he leaps up and kneeing Batman in the chin. Have you tried this? I learned it from the Canary, he says with a smile. It was in the past that Bruce dueled with Ra's al Ghul, their swords clashing at Raz's castle. I've left you a gift in your cell, something to take with you when you sneak out tonight and go back home. Raz tells him, ignoring Bruce's promises that he isn't leaving. What's the gift? Bruce asks as he knocks Raz's blade aside, slashing again, and Raz easily blocks the blow. It's nothing except my most valued possession. Something I killed many men to acquire and more to retain. Something for you to carry with you always, to remind you that though you leave, though you think you can reject everything that I am, you are my legacy. You will always remain my one true heir. Raz tells him. Back in the cabin, the back door is suddenly kicked open, and Catwoman stumbles out, supporting Edward. I need keep moving. If we stop, we're dead. Edward gasps at her, his hand trying to slow the bleeding from his gut. But Selina knows that they can't escape by walking. She then looks up and sees the Batmobile parked in the shadows nearby. If we have a chance, we need a ride. Moments later, they are roaring in the powerful car. Selina knows that they have to dump it. She knows that Batman can track it, but Edward tells her to get as far away as possible before they dump it. Who hired the Help? The buyer? We get stabbed? She asks Edward, but he shakes his head, gritting his teeth against the pain. No, the buyer's solid gold. Just means the Penguin's alive and flapping. Later, they dump the car and manage to steal a big rig. Edward is still losing a lot of blood and he leans his head against the window. I'm passing out now. Sorry. He whispers to her, and Selina grits her teeth, continuing to drive into the night, knowing what she must do. Back at the cabin, Batman hits the ground and doesn't move. The Help steps forward, reaching into his jacket. No, you seem very close to being very good, but not quite there. But a few more years with the necessary mistakes, and I think you will do something quite special, he says, pulling out a business card. This is my card. No pressure at all. But if you don't feel like waiting all those years, and you have a desire to learn a few important things in a slightly more efficient manner, do not hesitate to call, the Help says before turning and walking away. Inside the cabin, the Help finds a blood smear heading towards the back door. He looks up as a small man enters the cabin. And who are you? The man holds a briefcase. I'm the buyer? Who are you? He asks, and the Help smiles. I'm the Help, he says before turning. Long ago, a man sneaked into a church where the supposed Eye of God sits on an altar in a decorated box. The man quietly took the box and he left, bringing it to his nearby village where his sister was being buried. The man cries as he places the box with the Eye of God within his sister's coffin and he walks away. Days later, that man waits for his sister to rise from her grave and she doesn't rise, and he dies, waiting by her. But back in the modern time, Batman finally awakens, stumbling towards the cabin where he finds the buyer is dead, tortured by the Help. As he steps out into the night, he finds the Help's card waiting for him. Later, Penguin's guards lay dead outside of his hospital room. Oswald awakens to find the Help sitting at his bedside. The Help informs him that he has returned the money that he was paid, but tortured a man to learn what it was all about. And if what I suspect is true, if the rumors I have heard from the men who only talked because I was cutting them, well, to possess this would be something I would like, he says as he reaches into his jacket and pulls out a knife. So you must tell me, Oswald, what was that little man trying to buy with all of this money? The Help asks, and Oswald stares at him in fear as he leans closer. But now we go back in time again. You see, long ago, the workers were digging holes in a field where a young girl was buried, and her brother died. It's there that they find the remains of a coffin and some bones, and they also find a small box. The workers are all executed as Ra's al Ghul recovers the Eye of God. Meanwhile, Catwoman awaits him in a tiger sanctuary 520 miles west of Gotham. She opens the box that her and the Riddler stole, and her eyes widen as she looks into the Eye of God. Later, Batman stands ready as the tigers are now surrounding him, one roaring, leaping at him, but he dodges around it, punching it in the face. "I'm fighting tigers," he says to Alfred over the radio, ducking under another, flipping over its head, promising to get the tigers back into their cages and not leave them roaming the countryside. Later, Edward is sitting at a diner, eating waffles as he sits with the buyer. He tells her that the man she sent missed him and Selina. "Look, Nuri, you think I want this thing? I got shot for this thing. You bring the cash, I hand it over. The deal is the deal, and the deal stands," he tells her, but the government agent shakes her head, pointing out that her man is dead, and if Edward wants to live, he's going to give her the eye right now. Edward shakes his head, telling her, "I don't have the eye on me, and I can't get it unless you get me the money. No complications, no twists." But she leans across the table, slapping him across the face twice. He glares at her, not caring who she truly works for. "Don't touch me again," he warns her, but she slaps him a third time. Edward wipes blood from his lip. "I'm going to kill you." But Nuri nods her head, and everyone else in the diner stands, drawing weapons and pointing them at Edward. "I doubt it very much," she says with a smile. At the tiger sanctuary, Batman has fallen to the ground as the tiger lands on top of him, its teeth bared, but something stabs it from behind and it slumps to the ground. "Please excuse the interruption, Batman, but it seems you needed the Help." The Help tells him as he wipes the blood from his sword cane. Batman gets to his feet. "Ask me," the Help says as he walks around the room. The Help looks at Batman and explains that he knows Batman is thinking about taking advantage of the Help's knowledge and advice to help finish this and hunt down the culprits. "You have rightly concluded a scrap with me here will do nothing to benefit you, and I would wager that I know more about the ultimate players in this game than you do," he says, stopping and looking at Batman again. "So, ask me." Batman stares at him. Then he turns around. "We'll take my bike," he growls as he looks over his shoulder. "When this is over, so are you." The Help smiles. "Ah, yes, the unearned confidence of youth. You wear it well, sir. I will no doubt regret when I tear it from your hide." Meanwhile, back at the diner, Catwoman comes out of the back room, having snuck into the kitchen through the vents. She leaps over the counter, quickly disarming Nuri's agents, her whip cracking out. But now we go back into the past again. The Help stands with Ra's al Ghul, watching as a young Bruce Wayne continues to train. "He is the heir," Ra's informs him. The Help is intrigued. "I seem to remember you already giving away this name. Are there now two of us?" "Might be confusing at parties," the Help says, but Ra's shakes his head. "I once thought you worthy. I was mistaken." Back at the diner, the fight is over and Edward hasn't moved. He smiles at Nuri as Selina takes the seat next to him. Nuri, this is Selina. Selina reaches out, slamming Nuri's face onto the table. Back at Gotham, Penguin meets with Two-Face, offering him a hefty sum of money to join him in the hunt for the Riddler and Catwoman. Two-Face flips his coin for an answer.
A lot of us in this town. A lot of us with goons. Why me?
Two-Face asks, and Oswald nods, explaining that there are hundreds of goons in Gotham. Enough for a small army.
That's why you're not my first stop, nor my last,
Oswald says. A little bit later into the night, the help comes out of the diner, informing him that while the diner seems like everything is fine, it's obvious that something happened earlier. And whomever they're meeting with is probably the one who covered everything up. Someone with quite ample resources, probably government-related. He explains, and he leans against Batman's bike. It's an interesting journey. We walk lightly between the sovereign and the insane in search of, what would you call it? The help asks, glancing at Batman, who narrows his eyes.
Mine!
Later, the battle, which could easily be called a war, is joined. Colorfully dressed Gotham goons fought against a gathering of government agents. Guns were firing, explosions exploding, and comically themed Gotham weapons doing their thing. Also, the Joker was possibly there. There was a clown who fired a Tommy gun into the crowd while laughing maniacally, killing 33 government agents and 26 goons, but his identity is unsubstantiated. But how did we get there? Earlier, Riddler and Catwoman had broken into a family's home and tied them up, using their telephone to speak to Agent Nuri and set up that meeting at Moldoff Park. Let's say tomorrow morning at the gazebo in the middle, just the cat, me, and you. And the money, Riddler tells her. At her office, Nuri loads her pistol, ordering as many agents as she can, but she stops to make one last call to the President of the United States. I'm calling because I need a bomb, she tells him. At the Iceberg Lounge, the goons of Gotham have been gathered, with Cobblepot telling them that the buses are waiting outside to take them all to Moldoff Park.
Once there, you will find 3 targets, the Riddler, Catwoman, and the buyer. You will kill them all, and you will take my treasure, and you will be handsomely rewarded.
Penguin tells them all. After the meeting, one of Two-Face's goons sends a text message that reaches Batman. The Dark Knight looks up to the help.
Just got an update from a source. The meeting is set for tomorrow night. Penguin is bringing an army.
But long ago, in the deep past, a priestess of Athena met with the general of the Spartan army. The Peloponnesian War is over, and as an offering of surrender, the priestess offers the general a decorated box. Inside that box is the Eye of Athena. Who holds the eye, holds the world, the priestess says as she bows to the Spartan. But back at our current day, as Batman and the Help drive through the night trying to reach Moldoff Park, the Help asks Batman why he kept the eye safe. You seem to be a man of great resources, Mr. Batman. Did you not want to keep it closer at hand? He asks, but Batman doesn't respond as they continue to drive. At the park, Catwoman is worried about the meeting, believing that there's no way that Nuri will pay them. You worry too much. All the time with you. You'll see. They'll pay, Edward tells her. Money is easy. They'll take the easy. Not everyone is smart enough to appreciate a challenge. He continues, and he looks up to see Nuri approaching them, unaware that right now he is in a sniper's crosshairs. She waves at him. Nearby, the buses begin to pull up. Also nearby, the Help and Batman screech to a stop, with the Help beginning to hear the approaching helicopters. Military, flying low. Why would Penguin? The Help begins, but Batman is already running.
It's not the Penguin!
He yells back. At the gazebo, Nuri is beginning to hand over the bag of money, but her agents are informing her of the buses and the arrival of Batman. He's running in your direction, the agents warn. Nuri shifts her gaze and the Riddler follows it, his eyes widening as he sees the approaching Batman. But Catwoman is already moving. She kicks Riddler in the face, knocking him down, turning back to Nuri and holding up the box. I have it. When Batman gets me, he's going to take it from me and you'll never get it. You take it now, give me the money and let me run. Claim it for the government, he's a good boy. He won't take it from you. Catwoman says. Batman leaps into the air, his cape flapping as he draws close. You give him the Riddler as a consolation prize. Catwoman says as fear begins to fill Nuri's eyes. She draws her gun and she orders her snipers to take out Batman. I want everyone in the field! You stop all of these costumed crazies! I'm losing it! She shouts into the radio, and she raises her pistol, aiming it at Catwoman, but Batman has made it, slamming into her, dragging her to the ground. The agents rush to the gazebo. They meet with the goons. Gunfire and explosions fill the park. Catwoman leaps onto the grass, running away, but she's tripped by the help's cane. The box goes flying out of her hand, and as she flips through the air, landing in a crouch, she hisses at the help. Batman, meanwhile, helps Agent Nuri from the ground, slamming her into the gazebo. I'm Batman. You can't win. Call your troops. End this, he growls, but she refuses, ordering them to drop the bomb. What? Batman gasps in surprise, and she grits her teeth at him. You're Batman. We're the United States of America. No one holds the world in the palm of their hands but us! She snaps. Batman releases her, looking up, firing a grappling hook into the air, launching away. Meanwhile, over in the grass, the box hits the ground and tips. The lid opens up, and a small ball begins to roll downhill. Gunfire erupts all around it as it rolls, pushing down the grass, creating a path. And it finally stops at one man's feet. He reaches down, and he picks it up as the war continues around him. The Clock King smiles as he looks down at it, holding the world in his hand. Everything is perfectly timed. We cut back to the past. Selina has just rang the doorbell of the buyer. The door opens to reveal the Clock King. You're on time. Edward smiles at him. We're going to hold the world. Then we're going to sell it for so much. When else would we be? It was months later that the Clock King sat on the wall in Athens. He looked up into the night sky and smiled as he sees bats flying through the air. Before the meeting, Edward Nygma called the Clock King and told him the time and the place of the meeting. I understand, the Clock King says before hanging up the phone. At the meeting, Nuri orders her snipers to take out Batman, but the Clock King stands behind the sniper, firing a pistol, killing the sniper. He removed all possible problems for Batman. Overhead, Batman had pulled himself onto the helicopter, knocking the soldier that was about to drop the bomb. He grabbed the controls, bringing the helicopter higher before leaping out with the soldier, allowing the bomb to detonate harmlessly high above everyone. But down below, the Clock King has the eye of the world. He walks through the park, casually taking Batman's motorcycle, driving away into the night. Back at the gazebo, Edward Nygma struggled to his feet. Nuri was there, shouting over her radio. She doesn't see Nygma pick up her gun and aim, and he fires. Batman drops back down into the war zone below, pulling out the sleeping pellets that he keeps in his belt, dropping them on an army of guns and government agents below. Catwoman leaped into the air, dodging the help's attack, lashing out, kicking him hard in the face. And after the battle had ended, Batman walked through the smoke, having saved those that he was able. But it was not enough for him. 8 months pass. Vera walks into a pawn shop. She is drawn to a small, round ball that looks like an eye and asks the price. The owner looks at her. It's old. I paid a good price for it. So the price is set. Maybe it's something. Maybe it's junk. You never know. She doesn't look at him, her eyes transfixed on the eye. Who cares about the price? I got plenty of money and I like it. It's pretty and I'll take it. But 2 months after the meeting at the gazebo in the war, in Athens, Clock King is checking his watch, and he closes it as Batman approaches from behind. Days before that, Edward confronted Catwoman on a rooftop in Morocco, demanding to know why she betrayed him. Oh, like you weren't going to stab me every time I turned around. It was the way it had to go, Catwoman told him, and Edward smiled, motioning over his shoulder. Selina, darling, he's here. Batman growls behind her. It's done, for both of you. Anger fills Selina as she launches herself at Riddler. I'm going to tear your tongue out of your mouth, she hisses. But months later, Batman sits down with the Clock King. It wasn't their plan. They couldn't have done this. No. I knew it was you, right from the beginning. Just like you must have known we'd both end up right here, Clock King. 137 people died. For what? So you could hold the eye of God? Hold the world for a damn month? Is that what all of this was? Is that the game we played? But the Clock King shakes his head. No, I never held the world, he says. We then cut briefly to the past, to where this all began. The Eye of Athena, the prize given to the Spartans. It was never the eye of the god. You see, back when this all started, the eye of Athena was swapped out with a piece of stone. A simple eye held in a simple stone mask. Everyone thought that they held something important in their hands, something worth a fortune, something that may have been magical. They all thought they held the eye of Athena, the eye of God. They thought they held the world in the palm of their hands. But all of this for a simple piece of stone that was swapped out long ago. Back with Batman and the Clock King. Clock King looks out into the night. I owe you no explanations, and I offer none. The eye was yours. It was theirs, then it was mine. Now, it is lost. 137 are dead, and I surrender. What more is there to know? Clock King says. Batman pauses for a moment before lashing out, elbowing the Clock King in the face, knocking him down. The chase is over. In one final time jump, we go 1 month earlier. The Clock King is sitting on a plane. The stewardess is pouring him a cup of coffee, asking if he'd like cream or sugar. He explains that he just wants his coffee black. She then sees him playing with a simple, small, stone eye. And she asks, what is it? He simply tells her that it's nothing. Just something to help me pass the time. And there you go. During the last 2 years, there was a lot of one-off Batman stories that could be in continuity, also could not be in continuity. And basically, that's where a lot of them sit. And they're kind of fun. We're going to be covering Batman Fortress next, so if you want to stick around, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and we'll be able to bring you these videos on a regular basis. I hope you enjoyed.